Welcome back, everybody. I want to start by reading from MDG from the U.S., the highlight of my morning. Dear Dr. Amen and Tana, I don't even know where to begin. I've left a review before, but I just can't help but leave another. Your podcasts have changed my life. Never before have I been so protective of my brain health. She's a brain warrior.
I love that.
And the brain health of those I love. I am inspired, I am amazed, I am empowered. Tana makes me want to start taking self-defense classes. Yay! For real. I listen to your podcasts in the morning when I walk, and I have to stop walking sometimes so I can share them right away. See, I don't text and walk, thanks to you. By now, people are probably sick of me sharing.
Good.
When I discovered you were doing a talk on the Daniel Plan at Saddleback in February, I knew I just had to go. Just before heading out, I was talking to my family about the work you do. Someone then said to me, he sounds like a rock star. And I said, yes, he is in my life. I am not a rock star. Tana told me when we first started dating, she would never date a rock star or
anybody famous. No interest.
Anyways, it goes on, but I'm so grateful. I mean,
this is why we do this.
Our goal is to create warriors.
So we heard a really great message at church recently, and it really made sense to me because it was really about time management. Like, how are you spending your time? And if you do something purposeful, your time will you'll start automatically managing your time better because you run it through the filter of, does it fit my values and does it fulfill my purpose? And if it doesn't, why are you wasting your time with it? It becomes easier to say no to things. For us, we have this question, like, does it have eternal value? Does it fit this purpose of what we're trying to do? And it becomes much easier to say no to things. And one of the things I loved was when they said, it's actually like all these verses in the Bible. It was so interesting to me. But about how it was really about prioritizing, but really how you can't keep taking on new things, even things that are good for you, without clearing out all the other things you're doing. You have to continually be pruning, right? And taking things off of your plate. And this is why people can't get stuff done. You get more done by doing less of the stuff that's not making a difference, right? So we do this because it makes a difference.
So, actually, in my new book, Feel Better Fast and Make It Last, under the prefrontal cortex, because that's the part of your brain that watches you, it supervises you. One of the strategies to strengthen that is learn to say no. So when someone asks you to do something or you get the idea to volunteer, just before you say yes, say, I have to think about it.
Stop.
And then stop and evaluate, just like Tana said, does this fit the goals I have for my life?
Because we get all sorts of opportunities that are so cool. Sometimes it's hard to say no.
Well, today I got invited to speak at the Bar Association in New York City, and I turned it down.
Right.
Because it's right in the middle of my book launch and our new public television, and I'm
well,
like, I would love to do it, but I'm not sure it would love me back.
Well, and we get asked, you get asked to speak in Asia and in Europe, and it would be fun family vacations at the same time, but it doesn't fit. It's like exhausting.
So
right?
It's okay to say no. Now, that brings us to the topic for today, which can one extra glass of wine shorten your life by 30 minutes? And but we need to not do fake news. We don't want to make people upset. It's the extra glass of wine. So let's talk about what that means. Well, so it's above the limit of having 5 or 6 glasses a week.
Now, we would say even that is probably
I would say it's ridiculous.
Because it's a lot for your brain. It's too much for you to handle.
Just think of the extra calories.
Well, and we already know there are studies. Okay, while you're doing that, while you're getting the calories,
the number of extra calories.
And while you're getting the calories, I'm going to say we already know there are studies out there that 1 glass of wine per week or 1 drink per week increases a woman's risk of cancer more than a man's. So we would say that's probably a little too much. But there's another problem. When you drink every day, it not only sort of depresses your whole system, so if you're prone to depression and anxiety and things like that, but it increases, like, your risk of making bad decisions. So you become more impulsive and you make bad decisions. So if you're trying to lose weight or you're trying to not engage in risky behavior, you're more likely to do those things. So there are other reasons, but let's focus on the death part of this.
Well, the reason I'm not a fan of alcohol is I see the effect on the scans. Ginkgo makes your brain healthier, fuller, fatter, healthier. Alcohol makes it smaller.
Right.
There's a new study. Maybe we talked about this. They found that older people, like me, make as many baby hippocampi, or seahorses, right? We've talked about the hippocampus is Greek for seahorse. That my brain makes as many baby seahorses as Chloe's brain.
Right.
But mine don't live because I have lower blood flow to my brain, so I can't nourish those new cells that are being made in my brain. And so over time, as you get older, the brain shrinks. And I'm not okay with that. I don't want anything shrinking, except the fat, the extra fat I have, right?
Right.
So I think getting your seahorses drunk is just a bad idea. And I just calculated it. If you have 2 drinks a day, which is common. I mean, most people think that's within the sort of recommended guidelines.
Which is ridiculous.
But just the extra calories from that, and they're mostly empty calories, will put 21 pounds of fat a year on your body.
But that's not it. I mean, let's think about all the bad decisions you're likely to make. Let's think about, there's things like DUIs. There's all kinds of things. But in addition to that...
Okay, but most people are going to go, I
drink at home. I know, whatever. Much. So let's talk about one thing, though, because I really like what you said about the hippocampi. So we have mentioned, because people always ask me this. I get bombarded with questions. I always do, and I love that. We like that you're paying attention. But I want to be able to answer them in the podcast. When we have mentioned on PBS or in our books, 2 glasses of wine a week, you should be okay. And the reason we say that is because you should be engaging in enough positive activity. Now, if you don't drink at all, that's great. But if you're going to drink and you limit it to 2 normal size glasses a week, then 1 or 2, you are hopefully engaging in enough positive activity that you can counteract what it's doing to your body, if that makes sense. So you're not doing so much damage. So that's really damage control, correct?
Yeah. So I was at the California Naturopathic Association on Sunday and I spoke, and someone came up and they said, well, what about all the research on alcohol and longevity? And it's like, no, it doesn't make you live longer. Now, it may help your heart. There is some evidence, but according to the studies from Johns Hopkins, people who drink every day have smaller brains. And I would just argue, if you're going to live a long time, you don't want a smaller brain.
So let me ask you a question. So we know about the resveratrol, which you can take resveratrol. The being good for your heart, doesn't it have something to do with stress? Like relaxing, the fact that you relax, because there are a lot of people who are anxious, they're stressed out, and so you tend to relax, right?
And they like alcohol for that. So I was with somebody yesterday.
Oh, I used to. I was clearly.
And it's like, well, how do I relax? And I'm like, well, there's like 20 other ways to do it. Like there are 20 other ways to live longer.
Yeah, so let me give you one of my tips. Because I fully bought into that before I met you and saw the scans. And I'm like, a glass of wine at night after work is okay. Because it was a healthy thing, right? It was good for your heart. So then I saw the scans and I'm like, oh, maybe I need a different goal. And then my daughter came to me and said, you have to live to 100. And I went, okay, well, that was a little bit of a guilt trip. And now I have to figure out how to do that. And probably drinking every day is not going to do that, right? So I learned a long time ago that drinking all the time is not going to get me to my goals of being here and being healthy and being, having a really sharp memory in mind. One of the things, but I am an anxious person by nature. I tend to be a little bit wired by nature.
Really?
Yeah, a little bit.
Do you think anybody listening to the podcast would
Well, it's part of why I go hit stuff every day. So I cannot tell you how good it feels.
Not me.
Oh, God. I can't. No, I don't hit you. But I cannot tell you how good it feels to go just like get that energy out and hit pads. Just feels so good. Anyways, so one of the things I do at night to just chill and take that edge off, since I'm not drinking wine every night, is I get either valerian tea, or there's all kinds of different bedtime teas, sleepy time teas that are very relaxing, even chamomile tea or lavender tea. But I actually shave some ginger into it, which is really good for digestion, because sometimes people don't sleep well because of digestion. And I put some cayenne pepper in it. I know that sounds crazy. A little bit of cayenne pepper and maybe a couple drops of stevia. And that little bit of a bite helps you to sip on it a little longer. It really tastes, it's interesting taste. It tastes really good. It's got sort of that pungent, savory taste that's strong, but it really takes the edge off and helps you to relax. So that's one of my tips for at nighttime, helping you to relax. And take a lavender bath.
So when people say they drink to live longer, I would probably say there are lots of other ways to live longer. That one, we know, increases the risk of 7 different cancers.
Right. So I would suggest you go sign up for karate. Don't hit people, but go hit pads. It really will help you, I promise. You're looking at me with that look again.
And, it's this one question. It's so funny. When Chloe was 2,
Yep.
and I used to indoctrinate her into brain health. I guess with warriors, you need, warrior basic training.
Yeah, but now we've actually instilled an anxiety disorder, I think. You're good at that.
She's awesome.
But you're good at
I
doing
would
that.
ask her this question, and this is what I want you to ask you as you're listening to the podcast, is what you're doing today, whether it's alcohol, marijuana, crap food, not sleeping, being addicted to your gadgets, whatever, is what you're doing today good for your brain or bad for it?
Yep.
And if it's bad for it, you have to ask yourself, what's the payoff? What's the benefit? And are you going for short-term gain or long-term gain? So short-term gain can give you long-term pain. And I always want you to do, Tana and I always want you to do things that help you feel better now and later, as opposed to now but hurt you later.
And when you ask that question, there are people out there who are going to answer, I want short term, I want to be out of pain right now. So, you should probably, if you're one of those people who has experienced a lot of pain, there's something going on in your life and you're like, I just need to be out of pain. And that's why you do some of the things you do. Either listen to our podcast on grief. There might be something else going on with you, and maybe you need to get some help for that. Believe me, we understand.
I just had a patient this week, a young girl who was very depressed.
Right.
And she had Hashimoto's thyroiditis.
Mm-hmm.
We should do a whole podcast on thyroid. But that would be really valuable to people. All right, stay with us. You're listening to The Brain Warrior's Way.